The Tamron 50 to 300mm has proven to be a very competent full-frame telephoto lens, but I am not going to keep it. The reason for this is another Tamron lens, and if you keep watching, you're going to understand why. Welcome back, this is Luca, and as you can probably tell by watching the slideshow that I just showed you, the Tamron 50 to 300mm is capable of producing very compelling pictures throughout its entire zooming range. And yes, this is not the fastest aperture zoom that you can find, but for the purpose of this lens, an f4.5 to 6.3 is more than justifiable. Now, the biggest selling point of a lens like this is its extended zooming range if compared to the typical 70 to 300 or 70 to 200. Coming down to 50 millimeters may be a huge difference for some photographers, and it is for me. Why, you ask? Let me explain, because it's a fairly simple explanation. A telephoto lens that comes down to 50 millimeters, if you pair it with your typical 16 to 35, or in my case the 16 to 25, that is enough, will basically allow you not to need your typical 24 to 70. You can leave something home just because the gap that you have between 25 or 35 and 50, it can be easily covered by these modern high megapixel cameras like the A7R5 that is recording me right now. You can crop, and especially like me, when I go for landscapes, I tend to shoot either very wide or telephoto. I don't shoot in a normal focal range most of the time. So for me, leaving home something like the 24 to 70 or the 20 to 70, if you have that one, is not a big deal. And that, for someone like me, I hike a lot, makes a difference because I can bring a smaller backpack. My backpack is going to be lighter because your typical 24 to 70 is approximately 600, 700 grams if you want. So it's a pretty important change that for me drew me to this lens right away. Speaking of price, this lens was launched at $799 US, but I believe with tariffs it may have gone up in price. I'm not 100% sure, but it's still in the affordable range of prices. And for the price, it provides a solid construction like all the timers in this price range. It doesn't scream like super premium. It's not like the top of the range like a glass, or it's not the top of the range Fuji glass or anything like that, but it's well built. It's fairly lightweight for what it is. It's not super compact, but at the same time, it's not huge. It's provided with a fairly big hood that you can see over here, and it extends while zooming like the vast majority of lenses. And when it comes to controls, you don't have much. You have your zooming range, of course, it's zooming ring. You have your focusing ring, you have a function button on the barrel, and you have a lock mechanism on the barrel itself. Aside from that, you don't have much more. You do have a USB-C port that allows you to update the firmware when it's needed, but also to connect it to the Tamron utility software to customize some of the functions. The lens is also weather sealed, meaning resistant to splashes and dust. And even if the USB-C is exposed, that shouldn't be an issue at all. The filter thread is 67 millimeters, like the vast majority of Tamron lenses, and also other brands' lenses. 67 millimeters is fairly common if you want. So this helps limiting the amount of filters that you're going to bring with you. In my case, the 16 to 25 also has a 67 millimeter filter thread that basically allows me to bring, if I want, just 67 millimeters filters and not worry about different step-up rings and stuff like that. That is very important. And in general, when it comes to the construction, as I mentioned, it's not super premium, it's not super cheap, it's a middle ground, and there isn't much to complain about this lens. From an image quality standpoint, the lens performs fairly well in the center, even wide open throughout the zooming range. And the corners never get to the sharpness of the center, but they're not super bad either. So it's one of those things where you don't have bad image quality in the corners, but you don't have the same image quality you have in the center, even if you stop down. Where the lens suffers the most is against the sun or very strong light sources. The flaring can be a little bit out of control at times, even if you use the hood, because if the sun gets into the front element, the hood will not do anything. And that is something you need to be aware of. However, with the telephoto lens, this is a little bit less important than it is on a wide-angle lens, because the amount of times where you have the sun in a position where it ruins your photo are a lot less. With a wide-angle lens, that happens pretty much all the time. The bokeh isn't the smoothest. It's got a little bit of that swirly effect, although it's not super strong. But at the end of the day, it's not bad. And so from an image quality standpoint, although it doesn't scream I'm the best lens of the world, in my opinion, it gets a pass. It's a good lens that can get pretty good results, very good sharpness in the center, and all in all, not much to complain about. You can also focus fairly close to your subject. It's not a macro lens, but it's not bad in that regard either. And the autofocus has performed pretty well on my A7R5 throughout the entire time that I've been using this lens, which is almost a month, probably more than a month. Where I have a concern or a complaint is that the lens is stabilized, which is good. But in my experience, I found out that with the A7R5, the sensor stabilization and the lens stabilization kind of weren't perfectly in sync. What I mean by that is when I started using this lens, I was shooting even below the normal safe shutter speed, because knowing that I had both the sensor and the lens stabilized, I wanted to see what the lens was doing, and I wasn't getting any sharp result at all. That kind of threw me off. At the beginning, I thought the lens wasn't sharp. Then I started digging a little bit more, and what I found out is if I had disabled everything and I shot on a tripod, or I was shooting with faster shutter speeds, I had no issue and the lens was plenty sharp, even at 300 millimeters. This means that somehow those two stabilization don't work together really well. That is a problem just because you would expect to be able to somehow rely on the stabilization that you have, but in this case, you basically can't. So you're better off by shooting as if you don't have a stabilization and work with that rather than relying on the stabilization where sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I hope this can be fixed somehow via firmware. I checked and there isn't another firmware for the lens just yet. So finger crossed, but right now, and the lens is not super new, I think it was released a year ago, we have nothing that get this fixed. So keep that in mind if you're interested, and if you want to use it, keep that in mind. It may be very important for you. I've also used this lens as a video lens for product B-roll in my studio. I was just testing the lens and I wanted to see how it does. It performs really well. And although it will never be my main video lens, unless I'm outside and I'm shooting something on a landscape or wildlife or something like that, this lens can be used for video as well. Again, keep in mind the stabilization isn't that great, so you're better off using a tripod for that. Now at this point you may be asking yourself, hey Luca, why aren't you keeping this lens? It fits your needs from a focal range standpoint. It's good optically, although not perfect, but it's very good. And yes, it's not perfect when it comes to the stabilization, but I mentioned already, you can work around it. So why are you selling this lens? Why do you find another options works best for you? Well, I already told you it's another Tamron lens that made me decide not to keep this lens, and it's not the 50-400, the bigger brother to the 50-300. That is a lens that I would like to try, but I haven't tried, so I cannot speak for it. But what made the difference for me is the good old 28-200 that you see in my hands. My review of this lens is a year old. You can find it over here. And basically, this lens covers me. Yes, it doesn't get to 300 millimeters, but I don't shoot between 200 and 300 all the time. And from an image quality standpoint, these two lenses are very close. So a lens like the 28-200 that in a pinch I can use as my only lens if I'm going out and I'm doing something super strenuous and I don't want to bring 2 or 3 lenses, makes a lot of a difference from a flexibility standpoint, because even if the 50-300 is a little bit better throughout the zooming range, that little bit is not enough to let me give up on the flexibility the lens like the 28-200 gives me. This lens keeps proving itself to be very, very good. Any comparison that I do, I always go back to this lens because this lens does way better than the others from when you put together flexibility, image quality, and also this is a slightly faster lens compared to this. This comes in at f2.8 at 28, and it gets to f5.6 at 200 millimeters. This is a third of a stop slower when you get towards the telephoto end, not a big deal. And with a 61 megapixel camera like the one that I have, going in APS-C mode where I need 300 millimeters, I still get 26 megapixel images, which is more than enough for the stuff that I do. And if you're thinking wildlife, 300 millimeters could be enough, but it's going to be short anyways for wildlife. So it's not a game changer. Maybe the 50-400 would make a lot more difference, but keep in mind, I'm also covered with the 200-600. So when I'm going for wildlife, I have a lens that does what I need to do for that specific purpose. While when I'm going for landscapes or hiking or stuff like that, 200 millimeters as my longest focal length does more than enough. So my decision comes from the fact that I also have other lenses that cover me for more specific stuff. If I didn't have one, this has a little bit of an edge over the 28-200 just because I can get to 300. But at that point, I would probably go to the 50-400, which is, yes, bigger and it costs more, but at least gets you to 400 millimeters. Now, if you're watching this video, you're probably into super zoom lenses. If you watched my 28-200 millimeters, you're probably interested in getting a lens that does it all. Well, if you like that and you like that type of lenses and you want to know more about something very special that is coming to this channel, I have on order the Sigma 20-200, and I haven't picked that up just because, as you can probably hear my voice, I'm very sick, so I couldn't get out of the house. But as soon as I can, I'm going to pick that lens up and I'm going to put a review for you. I will also compare it to the 28-200 because I'm looking for the perfect all-in-one zoom lens. I also reviewed the 16-300 that you can find over here. I wasn't impressed with that lens for APS-C at all, to the point that I sold it immediately, and I will sell the 50-300 as well. But if you're into this type of lenses, stay tuned because the 22-200 Sigma review is coming, and is coming very soon. I believe that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and ciao. I'll see you in the next one.